Welcome back to the show today. We are talking about NBA fans and why do NBA fans follow players over teams? It seems to me that over any other sport, they really connect with the players themselves. Tom Brady signs a deal with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and Pats fans are still Pats fans. Juan Soto takes the subway to Queens, and Yankees fans are like, see you later. But I'm sure when Durant gets traded this summer, NBA fans all over the world are going to be buying Houston Rockets jerseys, or Miami Heat jerseys, or Minnesota Timberwolves jerseys. You get the point. So why is this? Why are baseball fans and football fans so committed to their teams and NBA fans just really aren't? I used to live in Cincinnati, Ohio, and the people there would not shut up about the Bengals or the Reds. People would talk about their sports teams like they'd talk about the weather. On Sundays where the Bengals lost, the whole town was irritable. The general mood of the city was directly dependent on how good their team's records were. And during baseball season, it seemed like it rained every day. The Reds aren't very good. And don't get me wrong, they loved the individual players on their teams. You would see Vontaze Burfict and Andy Dalton jerseys all over the place. But as soon as those guys moved on from their teams, you'd never hear them mentioned again unless it was in a derogatory way like Pick Six Palmer. If you were talking about the NFL, you were either talking about your fantasy team or you were talking about the Cincinnati Bengals. If you were talking about another team's drama outside of how it would affect the Bengals, it was weird. I'm not saying this is a bad thing. I actually think this was kind of cool because you always had something to talk about with a stranger at a bar or more likely a brewery. Also, baseball players stay on their teams way longer than NBA players do. In baseball, you've got a player like Joey Votto who played 17 years with the Reds. He only made the postseason 4 times and he never won a series. He signed a 10-year deal with a no-trade clause with the Reds. They tried to trade him multiple times to other teams and he never wanted to leave. I think he was even more bought into the organization than the fans were. Or Mike Trout, who's been one of the best players in the league for 10 years. He does not want to leave the Angels, even though he's only played in 3 playoff games in his 14-year career. Trout's contract is a 12-year contract. Again, it has a no-trade clause as well. Even if you could sign a contract that long in the NBA, no player would do it. No one wants to commit to their team that long. And baseball players sign these really long deals not just for the financial security. They take these deals because they know they're spreading out their earnings over a longer period of time, which is going to keep the organization's luxury tax bill lower. Shohei Ohtani is only getting 3% of his contract while he's actually playing baseball. That means over the next 10 years of his contract, he's only getting $20 million. And in the following 10 years where he's probably not playing, he's probably retired, he's going to get $680 million. He did this so while he's with the Dodgers, they'll have enough money to spend on the best team possible. He's deferring all this cash so the organization can pay his teammates. I could never see any NBA player doing this ever. Okay, Kevin Garnett did it as well, but not to the same degree. And I'm pretty sure he's just doing it for like tax purposes or something. So I think the reason that NBA fans are focused on players over teams has to do with the NBA draft. The NBA draft is way more important than the NFL draft. The NBA draft has a few prospects every year that can actually change the trajectory of an NBA team completely. Think about the fact that in basketball, there are just significantly less players than there are in football. An NFL roster has 53 players on it, while an NBA roster only has 15. 30 to 40 players actually see the field in an NFL game, but in the NBA, only like 10 really see the court. A single player has way more of an effect on a basketball game than a single player does in a football game. Unless that player's the quarterback. Quarterbacks are really important. But there's rarely ever a quarterback in the NFL draft that's going to change a team like LeBron James or Victor Wembanyama or Dwight Howard. Or at least no organization is willing to tank an entire season just so they can get that one quarterback. You may think the Browns tanked for Baker Mayfield or that the Dolphins tanked for Tua, but they probably just sucked and got the pick incidentally. Sorry. But my point is, this makes it so NFL fans believe in their team every year. There isn't this idea of a rebuilding year. Every fan base is measuring up their team against their division or figuring out how they can get the wild card spot. There's hope every year. That is not true in basketball. If you're a Utah Jazz fan this season, you're checked out. You're probably not even watching basketball anymore. They traded away their entire team 2 years ago, and they continue to trade away players when they show any sign of talent. The Jazz have no intention of winning this year or anytime soon. They just recently got fined $100K for sitting their best player, Lauri Markkanen. They didn't want to put miles on their best player because they didn't plan on winning. Utah Jazz basketball is in the entertainment industry, and it is a terrible product right now. But it's not their fault. They're trying to get a good draft pick. I have to imagine a lot of Utah Jazz fans are watching Donovan Mitchell on the Cavs right now. He was their star player before he got traded. I have to think a lot of Utah Jazz fans are watching him instead of watching the Jazz on League Pass. This happens all the time in the NBA. It's the way it is. Teams trade their best player whether they want to be traded or not, and the fans of that team become fans of that player's new team because their team isn't even trying to compete anymore. What's the point? Maybe I'm wrong, but I'm assuming a lot of Utah Jazz fans are Cavs fans right now. Another thing that I believe detaches NBA fans from their teams is the fact that the NBA has way more trades than the NFL or the MLB. Think about the trade deadline. You probably don't even know when the NFL trade deadline is, but the NBA makes their trade deadline into an event. It's a widely recognized phenomenon that the general public cares way more about about NBA trades than they do the actual game. So with that being said, the NBA wants trades so they can draw more attention to their league. Sure, it's cool to see a player in a new jersey, but it definitely cheapens the integrity of the team themselves. I think the NBA sacrifices a lot of fan loyalty for drama. They probably liked the Luka Doncic trade. Actually, I'm sure they liked the Luka Doncic trade. They got a lot of attention from the sports community all over the world. People who aren't even NBA fans or aren't even in America wanted to know what the deal was with this trade because they were hearing about it everywhere. I'm not saying this wasn't exciting. This is one of the best players in the world being traded from the team that he was drafted by for apparently no reason. And he was traded to the most winning and highest valued franchise in the league. Seriously, it may have destroyed a fan base. A lot of Mavericks fans loved Luka as much as they loved the Mavericks themselves. He was the face of that team and the fan base thought he'd be there for at least 10 more years. So when the Mavericks flippantly traded him, the fan base became resentful of management, ownership, and by proxy, the team. There are bitter Mavericks fans that are rooting for Luka this year. They want the Lakers to succeed. They don't care about the Mavs. Granted, this is an extreme example, but when management does stuff like this, it not only tarnishes their own franchise, but the NBA as a whole. It makes the NBA look like the Real Housewives and not a professional sports league. Also, the trade demand is something unique to the NBA. I never hear of players refusing to play or be traded in any other league. I suppose it happens occasionally, but trade demands are a bad look for the NBA. But the NBA put themselves in this position. The NBA allows their teams to extend their players to bigger contracts than any other team can in free agency. This was a rule put in place to keep guys on the same team for a longer period of time, to increase loyalty. But it backfires because guys will just sign that contract, and if they change their mind, they can just demand to be traded. And this creates toxicity in the fan base. Fans either side with the player or the team. Fans find themselves picking sides and having to keep up with the drama. James Harden's messy divorce from the Philadelphia 76ers makes Kevin Durant signing with the Golden State Warriors look like an amicable breakup. So you can't just make rules that force players and teams to commit to each other. They'll just find a way around it if either of them want to bail. I think players should be allowed to sign 10-year contracts with no trade clauses. If Jimmy Butler had signed a 10-year deal with the Heat, they would have had to figure it out because Pat Riley couldn't have traded him. And Jimmy wasn't going to phone it in or sit out for 5 straight years. That's the rest of his career. In addition, no one would have traded for Jimmy in those last 5 years because they would have been those bad 5 years of the contract. It would have been when Jimmy was old. Just like in baseball, those last couple years of that 10-year Joey Votto contract were really just back pay from the first couple years where he was hitting 30 home runs a season. Now I know Scottie Pippen got burned on a long contract with the Bulls, and I know the Wizards got burned on a long contract with Gilbert Arenas. But teams and players should have the option to at least commit to each other. But the NBA would prefer a headline that Kevin Durant gets traded mid-season than Kevin Durant is getting a statue in front of the Paycom Center. That's where the Oklahoma City Thunder play. But let's keep it real. The NBA loves stars, and that's just the way it is. It's kind of embarrassing how much the NBA loves their faces of the league. The NBA punishes teams if they sit their best players, even if sitting stars is a good strategic idea. The NBA does not care. They want their fans to turn on the TV and see LeBron James and Steph Curry play each other. They also don't want parents to bring their kids to a game and see Tyrese Halliburton is on the bench because he has to rest his groin or something. It makes basketball games feel like celebrity sightings or red carpet events rather than a single basketball game in the context of an 82-game season. But hey, this is how the NBA has to sell itself because the NFL has the luxury of a shorter schedule. They have a 17-game season. Every game you go to in the NFL has playoff implications. Also, there are 2 less spots in the playoffs. Even if you travel all the way to Lambeau Field to watch Matt Flynn throw the ball instead of Aaron Rodgers, you're still going to be excited to be there because the game has stakes. Sorry, my NFL references are pretty dated. I don't think there's necessarily anything wrong with this either. There's way less players in basketball. It's a very individually focused game. And not everyone can be sickos like us arguing if Malik Beasley or Peyton Pritchard deserves the 6th Man of the Year award. But I think the NBA can make some changes. They can try to make their team's brands more consistent. Maybe stop changing the team's logos, colors, and jerseys every year. Change the draft lottery so you're not encouraging teams to be really bad at the game. Move the trade deadline earlier in the season so it doesn't turn into a flea market of protected picks and expiring contracts. These are just some of my ideas. What are yours? All right, thank you for being here. Leave a comment. I reply to all the comments. Leave a suggestion. I think I did this one on my own. I think this was a selfish video. I'm not sure. Like the video. That's been helping. Channel's growing, and I appreciate it. So, be good to your mothers. Eat a corn dog.